You're listening to the Westminster Canterbury Tales podcast, creating community to foster joy and well-being. Thanks for listening.
Well, welcome. We are here today to begin Tell Me a Story at Westminster Canterbury on the Bay. And today our guest is Dr. Henry Watts. I just found out you were a doctor. All this time I've, known you and heard about you, and I did not know you were a doctor.
I've just been old Henry for everybody.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're just delighted that you would spend the time with us and share about your life and the story of your life and all the different things you've happened. So let me ask you to begin by just telling us first where you were born and just a little bit about your family background.
Okay. I was born in Montgomery, Alabama. My dad was in World War I, and he came back and married a young lady, and they had a child, and both the child and the mother died in childbirth. So later on, he met my mother in Birmingham, and she was just 16. He was 26. And they married, and then some way moved to Montgomery. That's history I'm not sure of, how they got to Montgomery, but that's where I was born. Okay. And I was the fourth of four brothers.
All right. So were you the youngest then?
I was the youngest of four brothers.
All right. Well, great. So you're in Montgomery, Alabama, but you didn't stay there very long.
No, apparently not. I'm not certain of the date we moved back to Birmingham, but obviously my mother's ties were strong, and she wanted to be in Birmingham, and so we moved back to Birmingham, and that's really where I grew up.
Okay, so you went to grammar school, high school there?
Third grade, we had a small sojourn. We went out to move to Waco, Texas.
Oh, okay.
My dad was a bit of his mother was in Texas.
All right.
His mother and father had separated, divorced, and his father was a doctor there in Birmingham, and so they moved all the family out to Texas for a while, and Waco, but I was preschool.
Yeah.
And then I remember that I was in the third grade when we moved back to Birmingham, so Birmingham holds most of my memories. And
oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. So you went to grammar school, into high school. Tell us about high school. What was that like?
Well, I went to a vocational high school.
Okay.
And took office practice, learned to type, which I'm losing fast. I learned to take shorthand, which I never learned very well.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And I worked in office arrangements. Ellen and I married very young.
Okay.
We were 18, just almost 19, but 18. And got back from our 3-day honeymoon, and school was calling me, said the Southern Railway, had a job as for a construction clerk at Irondale, Alabama, a suburb of Birmingham. And would I be interested in being interviewed? And I said, gosh, yes. Working at A&P right now.
Yeah.
So went down and got the job and got enough raise that Elder quit work and became a house mother, and she's always kept the house and raised the family.
Oh, that's great.
Wonderful
that's beautiful.
gal.
Now, how did you meet her?
Well, we met at church. We had little churches, and our little church and her little church were part of a sub-district of the Methodist Youth Fellowship.
Okay.
And so as soon as we were both go to regional meetings, quarterly meetings. And as soon as I laid eyes on her, I knew she was the one for me. I had to work.
Yeah. Oh, you did. Yeah. That's all right. You did well.
I did well. I did very well.
And so now somewhere in the process of that, you spent 1 year at the University of...
Yeah, when between the time that we decided to get married, and we did get married the following year, I immediately started to Alabama, University of Alabama, on a semester system. So I went to spring semester, and then I went to summer semester, and I got the year's credit for that period. And before I could decide to go back to Alabama, we decided to get married that fall. So we married in November.
Oh.
And I knew I wanted to go to work. And of course, the Southern Railway was a great opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just learned so much
And
through the years.
did you have any idea when you were going to school that you were going to work for the railroad?
No, none at all.
Yeah.
None at all. There was just good fortune.
Yeah, it just happened.
Yeah, it just happened.
Well, it's not all good fortune. You put some time and work and sweat in it too, but you took advantage of the good fortune.
That's true.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to always knew I needed more education, always. So all the time that I was both as a clerk and then later on as a safety supervisor with a traveling job, I always had a book, always was enrolled in a study-at-home course or something, and it became obvious to me that I needed more education, but as long as I was traveling, it was impossible to go back to
That's right.
regular classrooms.
Yeah. So your first job was a clerk. What was that like? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we had the yard. We had the usual kinds of things to do, keeping up with materials and making reports and so on, those kinds of things. So it was strictly just a entry-level job, I typed up reports and that kind of thing.
Okay, so when you moved, though, from that job, didn't you clerk for a while they were...
Yeah, after the yard job began to play out, apparently they liked what I was doing, so they asked me if I'd take a job. We called it downtown or at a division engineer's office, and I did that, and I was glad I did. I met a lot of good people, a lot of interesting people, and got a chance to, with a friendly train master, to ride we called it the Long Barrel Local.
Okay.
Local went out of Birmingham and came back. I never will forget, that was my first experience to be on the train.
Oh, really?
And on a caboose. We had cabooses back then. And I never will forget the old conductor saying to me, "Boy, you better sit down. That engineer will knock your ass over a tin cup." Excuse me.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
But that's and then so I was out on the railroad. I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And that was just one Saturday.
So you're working for engineers. What were they making?
We built a big classification yard for cars. The train comes in, you break the train. Back then, we break the train up and would reclassify the cars.
All right.
Going in many different directions. Because we had short hauls. We might have going to Augusta. We might have going to different places.
Sure.
And so back then the railroads thought that the classification and doing it automatically by just taking up a hump and dropping them off, and you have retarders to slow the cars down as necessary so that they don't overspeed couple. It was a way to do it.
Okay.
By the way, they don't do it that way anymore.
They don't? Okay.
No, this is a new day. It's a wonderful new day. That's going on today. The guys are, and what they do today is just unbelievable to me. Guys and gals, by the way. We got lots of ladies now in
That's great.
top jobs.
Good. So you started as a clerk. You continued as a clerk, but you moved uptown or in town or something like that, and worked at this engineering area. And then what happened?
Well, then I was invited to take a job over in the safety department.
Okay.
And the safety department had 3 divisional offices or sectional offices, and we were on what's called Western lines. And so I went in there and began to learn, and still as a clerk, but began to learn the safety business. And after a period of time, I was asked if I would take a safety supervisor's job.
Okay.
We had a auditorium car that we took around the railroad and held in meetings in the car with small groups, stressing safety items such as getting on safely and getting on and off cars safely, moving cars safely, and those kinds of things that are necessary for the craft jobs to do.
So, I was wondering what kind of safety activities trains were involved in, but it's important to know how to get on and off and how to stop them.
Yeah, that's so many other things that they have to do, and we always made a little inspection of the yards to see that there weren't brake shoes that could cause a tripping hazard alongside the track and that kind of thing.
In a way, that sort of allowed you to, because you had to travel a lot for this job.
Oh, yes.
Right?
2 weeks of every month.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. And where would you travel to? Just in the South? Or would you?
All over Western lines, all over Southern Railway. By that time, it was not just Western lines. Okay. So I might be at Huntingburg, Indiana.
Yeah.
You ever heard of Huntingburg, Indiana?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Or I might be down in Mississippi somewhere.
I heard of that.
Because what we tried to do was get around the whole railroad. Okay. So that we managed to catch or give an opportunity to every person switching cars to see this little film we had. Sure. And to hear a little short talk and have a cup of coffee.
Oh, my. In a way, that's interesting because it gave you an opportunity to learn about not only about safety, which it did, but also just about how the railway worked and to meet people and to look at different stations and different places. So you got to really know the railroad because you hadn't really been involved in the railroad before you got this job.
That's right.
Yeah. So in a way, that job was really a blessing to you because it was your education.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
That's fascinating.
And we would not, since we were dealing primarily with train and engine crews, but the mechanical people were right there, the maintenance away people were right there, and had many opportunities to interface with them. And just because I was always asking questions, they must have thought I was some kind of nut.
Yeah. Have you always been an inquisitive sort of person and asking questions? And it sounds like you are, and reading and knowing. I know you have the reputation here of being interested in education and learning, but have you always had that, or is that something you developed?
I didn't intend to be that way, but I think I was that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got this promotion. And how was that new job?
Well, the new job was wonderful. The only thing about it was I had to travel and be going away from home and feel sorry for myself when I'd get on the bus on Sunday afternoon and everybody was at home having a good time except Henry, and he was on a bus headed down south. Yeah. But it worked out, and I very quickly began to focus on where I wanted to be on the railroad and what I had to do to get there. And I really wanted to be a train master.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Tell us what a train master is.
Train master is supervisor of the train operation.
Okay.
It works for the superintendent. I thought train master was the greatest thing in the world, and I pretty quickly learned that you had to have a civil engineer degree to get started.
Okay.
And that didn't work because I didn't have much chance at going back and getting a civil engineering degree.
Right.
But I also knew I had to have a degree, had to continue to study. So I took correspondence courses. I did all kinds of things.
Where did you take them from? What schools?
Well, there was a railroad correspondence course.
Oh.
And it had everything, little blue books I remember, had everything from maintaining a hand car to applying a set of shoes to brake shoes to a car, all kinds of things of that type. So the mechanical department, the track department, or whatever.
Yeah. So you learn all that kind of stuff. Well, that's great. Let's back up just a little bit and tell us now what was happening back home. Do you have any children by that time?
We had one daughter after 2 years of marriage, and so when we moved to Washington, she was our only child. Then we had 2 other little girls. We have 3 daughters, 3 beautiful daughters. They're all retirement age now.
Oh, wow. Good.
But they're wonderful, and they and their families are all an integral part of our lives.
Oh, that's great. Where do they live?
Well, North Carolina.
Okay.
Our oldest daughter, and most of her family. Okay. And then our middle daughter lives in Baltimore
All right.
One of our daughters is there, and her other daughter is at Richmond.
Okay.
So we have Richmond family. And then our youngest daughter and her husband picked up and retired after they retired and moved to Grand Junction, Colorado.
Oh, my.
So they're the furthest away.
Yeah.
But it gave us an opportunity to go right across the Rockies.
Yeah. On a train, of course.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That must be a beautiful train ride.
It is. It's beautiful because I'd read enough about the construction of that track to know that, man alive, I don't know how they did it.
Okay, you just jogged something in my mind, and I had forgotten this. But when my parents came, I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and when I was about a year old, moved to California. And so I lived out there. But just probably before I was in high school, my family took a train from Central California to Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
And that was a couple-day trip at that point. And then, of course, we came back that way. One of the markers of my life, I remember that riding on the train and how exciting that was. And not everybody gets to do that anymore because we have all these cars now and planes and everything like that. But trains are such a kind of an enchanting way to travel because you don't have to worry about what street you're going to turn on or anything like that.
It's true, especially in Europe. They, of course, the distances are so much shorter.
Yes, they are.
Don't forget that. But they have really wonderful trains, high-speed trains between major points.
Right. Yeah, I've been able to ride some of those. But, okay, so let's get back to your life.
Okay.
And you had 3 kids, and you were now traveling a lot. What was the next change that happened in
Next change is I got off onto I went in the president's office, working for the president.
Okay.
And I didn't no travel. So I went back to school immediately.
Oh.
And started at George Washington, and by that time I had accumulated 2 years.
Okay.
Because I had gone to some night school and so on. So I worked on my bachelor's degree in business.
All right.
And got that, and fairly quickly. And I thought, well, I think I'll get an MBA. And I did that fairly quickly.
And that was at George Washington as well?
George Washington
Very good school, yeah.
George Washington at that time, and I think it's a big mistake, but they required a lot of math in the business school. And they also, for the MBA, they required a thesis or dissertation. My son-in-law, who's much smarter than I am, straightens me out on that.
It's probably a thesis, but yeah.
And I wrote one on the car hire, between the exchange of cars between railroads.
Oh, wow.
They're free-flowing cars, you'll see all kinds of cars on Southern Railway and all kinds on all other railroads. And I wrote a history of that, how car hire developed.
Wow.
And it was not only a lot of fun for me, but all of a sudden other railroads wanted to see a copy of it. The Association of American Railroads, where I did a lot of research, put it on the essential list, and sure enough, people began to ask for it. I got letters from all kinds of people.
Isn't that great? Oh, wow.
It was fun to do.
Oh, my.
I don't think it was any great scholarly achievement, but it was fun to do.
Well, I wrote a master's thesis, and I think the only thing it was good for is holding the door open.
Well, mine wasn't thick enough to hold the door open.
Well, nevertheless, yours got read, and that's great. That's great. Okay, so you went to school while you were working for the president, and then? In the MBA, I had everything I could get in marketing because that's where I wanted to go. Okay.
I wanted to go to marketing. So I spoke to the president and told him that I'd like to move on. And he said, sure. So he sent me to personnel, and they evaluated me and put me in personnel. And I said, I'm looking for marketing. Anyway, I didn't say it too loudly because I was glad for any opportunity.
Sure.
And so I thought, well, I don't know, it's about behavioral science. So I went back to take classes in behavioral science. And when I did, I thought, well, it's kind of stupid to take them for non-credit.
Yeah.
so I just started taking them for credit, and first thing you know, I was well on my way to the doctorate. And as far as classwork, classwork and a doctorate, as you know, is not the big thing. The big
Right. It's writing that
there's a
dissertation.
big bear at the end.
That I know.
And so I did it because of being some promotions and some opportunities at work.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get right into the dissertation. I took a year off,
Mm-hmm.
and then I took a year to write the dissertation.
Yeah.
Did a little research by writing other companies, looking at the relationship of merit pay
Okay.
and forestalling unionization.
Okay. Huh.
So I tried to pick, at that time, the IT departments were just coming alive everywhere. And I thought, well, that'd be a good one to see whether or not companies use merit pay with IT departments.
Right.
And so I did a research, sent out a bunch of inquiries, and
Wow.
had lots of conversations with people, and they sent back, some of them sent back replies. And so that's what I wrote my.
So so now you have a new job. You're working in.
Now I have a new job, and the doctorate made a difference.
Sure.
And so I became vice president personnel.
Oh wow.
Yeah, after a few other chops.
Sure.
And then we merged. And I had a great opportunity in the
Now,
merger of
who did you merge with?
the Norfolk and Western Railroad, the Southern Railway.
Okay.
Had a great opportunity because a gentleman from the N&W and I went around to all departments across the railroad.
Okay.
We'd get the two department heads together, whatever staff they wanted, and would say, "You guys do everything exactly the same?" And of course they said no. Well, how do you do it and how do you do it? Then they had to decide how they were going to do it after the merger.
Mm-hmm.
And we always told them, well, don't worry. If y'all can't decide, the CEO has said he will decide.
That's right.
So they did decide, and we recorded all of that. And so then at the time of merger, 1982,
Okay.
it took a year, to get through ICC.
Sure.
When we got the authority to merge, nobody could deviate from their plan.
Okay.
It didn't have anything to do who was going to be the head of the department. It had to do how they were going to do things. So it worked very well.
Wow. It's interesting. You hear about mergers all the time, but you don't necessarily hear about how they happen. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like this was done right.
Well, I don't know about that because it sounds like I'm bragging a little bit, but it was a very successful merger. We were equals in size. Mm-hmm. The N&W was heavy in heavy haul, coal business. Mm-hmm. The Southern Railway was heavy in merchandise business.
Okay.
So it was a marriage of equals with very unequal tasks. They had very different operations, but it worked out. It's a very balanced company. And then just before I retired, we had started, that's another thing, but we had started trying to acquire Conrail.
Okay.
But it's in the Northeast. And eventually we got in a big scrap with CSX, but we decided to split it up finally. Okay. And so that's what we did. And so now you only have two railroads in the East. Mm-hmm. We have the old Pennsylvania route straight across.
Okay.
And the CSX still goes up to Buffalo.
All right.
And across and then down into New York. We've got the best route now because the state of Pennsylvania helped out a lot, and we've daylighted a lot of tunnels and all of the kinds of impediments to a high-speed operation.
All right.
Went out the window. So and it's shorter route.
Route?
You can guess that come straight across the country.
Okay.
Don't have to go up north and come across we call it the water level route.
All right.
Which is alongside the river coming across.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. So you can take a train all the way across the United States now, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes. There's still two routes. the one that Southern Railway operated, which is operated a portion of from New York to New Orleans,
Right.
and then New Orleans to L.A.
Okay.
Still operates.
All right.
And in the northern route, I think you got maybe 2 routes still, but you got the route that comes down. You were talking about the central coming across that way. And the northern route, I don't believe there's a through train from the east to west.
Yeah.
But I think it still operates some passenger service up on the what now would be the Union Pacific.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So, how long did you spend in working in the railroad business?
47 years.
47 years.
Yeah.
And then you ended up as
vice chairman.
Chairman.
When we merged the 2 companies, not too long after that, I was personnel vice president when we merged, and then they moved me over into planning and development and as vice president, and then I became an executive vice president there in that situation. And then after merger of the 2, I was selected to be executive vice president of marketing.
Okay.
And so,
which is what you wanted to do all along.
All the way. What goes around comes around. And so,
isn't that great?
Yeah,
that was your goal. You went to get your degree for that reason.
I had no idea though I'd be the top man in marketing.
There you go. But that's great.
It was, and so that I worked at that 10 years, and then prior to retirement, I was made vice chairman, and then retired. And I've enjoyed retirement, and I've enjoyed watching these guys do a magnificent job with the Norfolk Southern. You know, they moved from here, and we all regretted that. But
sure.
They've done a tremendous job.
Good. Tell me about work life and family life. You have a wonderful family, beautiful wife, 3 daughters.
Yeah.
You had to be gone a lot.
Yeah.
You had a demanding job. What were some of the challenges you faced in your family life from your work life, and maybe vice versa too, if you want?
Well, you know, that was an easy challenge because the minute I walked in the door at home, I was a member of the family. It was never hard for me to come home because when I came home, I was the father, and the daughters would pay attention to the father, thanks probably to their mother. But it was never difficult for me to be home. It was difficult for me to be away, but not to be home. And I loved every minute of it. We did lots of things together as a family. We traveled some, and we just did all kinds of great things together as a family.
Can you tell me any of the decisions? You know, families are challenging nowadays, especially more than ever. Can you give me some insight into some of the things that you and your wife decided on or did to make sure your family was cared for, loved, accepted, encouraged? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not sure that I would want to brag about any of this now because everything is not perfect. You know, would not as you raise 3 girls. But I guess one thing is we were always ready to go to the class plays, to do whatever to make sure they had the costumes they needed and whatnot for their participation. Sure. That would be the one thing that I would think that was important to us. All of the family history has not been perfect. It is perfect now. All's well that ends well.
That's right.
And we've got 3 wonderful daughters and 3 wonderful families. And
good.
We're going to have 31 of us here in the penthouse.
Oh, really?
Next weekend.
Oh, for Christmas. Yeah.
Eleanor started that when our oldest daughter had children. Rather than having Christmas Day, everybody comes home to Grandpa's at Christmas Day, I guess, you know. Yeah. But the idea was you need to be home at Christmas. Yes. So we'll celebrate Christmas at our house a week before.
Oh, that's
so
great.
we've done it to the day, and we have them all come home.
And so how many times have you done this? Like
Well,
a dozen or more?
No, let's see, about 70.
70.
65
Oh,
or
my
70
goodness.
since well, maybe since
Yeah.
not quite that long since the girls have been grown.
Sure.
Certainly since they've had children,
Are there
because we want them to be home with their children.
any rituals that you do when you get together like that? Or you just love on each other and that
No,
kind
I
of thing?
tell railroad tales.
You tell tales. Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. Yeah, tales.
They've all heard them now. They can repeat them verbatim.
Okay, you're not going to share one with us, are you?
Well, I'll share one
Oh,
with you.
good.
I was down in New Orleans, and I had the midnight shift, night shift. So I had a train that was coming in, 153 was coming in, and I was to catch the crew. That means to have the crew come in and see my little movie and hear a few remarks.
Sure.
And so I knew the train was in, and only one man showed up. And so I said, come in and have a cup of coffee, and we'll, so one man, I'll get one man. So he came in, and he sat there through the music, and he thanked me when he left. I thought, well, that's unusual. I don't get thanks from these guys. He thanked me. And the next morning, I never will forget, one of our police officers, we had police officers everywhere, private police, came by and said, Henry said, did you have a safety meeting last night? I said, sure did. Didn't get but one member of the crew, though. He said, you didn't get any members of the crew. He said, that was a hobo. And when I threw him off the railroad, he said, you guys, one guy gives me a cup of coffee, and the next guy throws me off. So there you are. They've heard that story, but too.
You've been educating the hobos on your train how to get on and off.
And giving them a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. And giving them a cup of coffee. Okay, so you retired. What year was that?
I've been retired 25 years. You do the math.
Okay, so that's in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
98
98 probably.
98, 99. Yeah.
Was that a hard decision?
No, corporate officers were required to retire at 65.
Okay.
And that was lawful and legal, and
Sure.
Everybody understood it and expected it. The only people that didn't expect it, we had that rule on Southern Railway long before we ever merged with any of the railroad. And I worked for presidents. I worked for 4 different presidents on the railroad over the years, and not a one of them wanted to retire at 65.
Yeah.
But all of them did retire at 65.
Yeah.
The board always held to that. Right. And I think it was good. It was a refreshment of the officers. Mm-hmm. It's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. So was it hard, though, for you to adjust to retirement?
No, not at all. Ellen and I, the children were all grown at that time, had their own families, and Ellen and I loved to travel, so we saw the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we went everywhere.
Okay, so you've got to tell us this, because this is the other half of life.
Yeah, that's right.
And so how did you choose where to go first, and where did you go? And tell us some of that.
Well, we wanted to see Europe, so that was easy. Then we wanted to see the rest of the world, and the rest of the world, interesting except for South America. That came much later. But we took some round-the-world kind of trips.
Oh, wow.
Where the plane was assigned and so on, and that was lectures every day. And and so it was really eye-opening. Travel is so, it's engaging, but it also is enlarging of your intellect.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then around South America, we went around. We got to 63, about a third of the countries of the world.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then we pretty much burned out.
Yes.
And so we said, well, let's see the United States. We haven't really seen the United States.
Oh, that's great, yeah.
So we needed some reason to see the United States, and said, well, I'd like to see all the presidential libraries.
Oh, my.
So from the presidential libraries expanded into presidential sites. you know.
Yeah.
So we spent the next 4 or 5 years traveling around the United States, 200 miles in a day. We never got in a hurry.
Wow.
But we went everywhere. And we tried to, as we went from place to place, try to see the little places in the little towns.
Sure.
And it was amazing what you can see, like the Jell-O Museum or whatever.
The Jell-O Museum? Where was that?
Somewhere in New York.
Oh, my. I remember the chocolate factory somewhere in Germany. But
well, I'd like to see that. I haven't seen that.
And there's one in Belgium, too, but at any rate. The Chocolate Museum is in I can't remember the name of the city in Germany, but there's one I went to. So so you've traveled a lot.
Yeah.
And any challenges of retirement? I mean, most people have, adjustment and difficult.
Not at all, because we did travel a lot internationally, and then when we decided that we were 78, I think, when we decided to come here to Westminster Canterbury, and the beautiful thing about Westminster Canterbury is that so many interesting people.
Yeah.
So many people who've had wonderful experiences and are willing to share them. And it's just been a delight.
It can be intellectually stimulating
to
be here with the different people, because in one day you might be talking with somebody that's a lawyer that just, has worked with John Kennedy or somebody like that. Right. The next day you're talking with somebody who's the head of a railway, and the next day, so it's fun, and I have fun working here and talking to the different people. And of course, I get to do these podcasts, which really helps a little bit. I would just want to say thank you for sharing your life with us and your story with us. And I'd also say you've meant a lot to Westminster Canterbury. You started or helped in the Great Decisions. I think that's
I helped.
You
helped.
It
started by others and successfully started by others.
Right. But you helped in that, and you led that for a while.
I loved it.
And then also the review of books, right?
They asked me to do a book review a few years ago, and they won't let me go. I'll do a lousy one this time, and they'll let me go.
All right. But anyway, so you've been real, helpful here in keeping the intellectual.
And I've had some opportunities given to me by Westminster. I served on the foundation board.
Okay.
And became chairman of the foundation board. Only in-house member they've had so far.
Oh, wow.
Hopefully they'll have another one sometime.
Uh-huh.
But that gave me an opportunity to interact with the board of directors.
Right.
And that was fun, too, to get to know them and so on. So I've had some wonderful experiences here.
Yeah. Well, and you've enriched the community, too.
Well, I'm not
in
sure
so many
about that.
ways. Yeah.
You better don't ask too many people. You might get a surprise.
Well, I just thank you for your time. And I would just say this to the Westminster community, if you're listening, that it'd be, your name is in the directory, and Henry Watts. And if you want to learn more or talk to him about some of these things, look him up and talk to him. He's a delightful man, a Southern gentleman, if I might put it that way. And you would do well to spend some time talking to him. Well, this is Ben Fraser for Tell Me a Story, and we're going to sign off now. Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Westminster Canterbury Tales podcast. Thank you for listening.